much for joining me for today's webinar, Understanding Medicine Labels, Making Sense of Your Meds. I'm Carla, the Director of User Engagement at NeedyMeds. And before we begin, I'm going to offer a few tips so you can make the most out of today's presentation. You can ask questions at any time by typing them into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. Just know I will reserve answering questions until the end. If I don't get a chance to answer your question, I will follow up with you by email. But of course, I will also provide my contact information and the contact information for NeedyMeds at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. And you can find a copy of my PowerPoint slide deck, as well as other attachments I thought you might be interested in that handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. With today's presentation, I'm going to cover what NeedyMeds, BeMedWise, and Talk About Your Medicines Month are. We'll discuss medicine labels and some of the medicine label basics. We'll talk about why understanding medicine labels when it comes to older adults, children, and caregivers is so important. We'll spotlight why medicine labels for pain medications and acetaminophen are also important. And of course, I'll make sure you know where you can find all the information you need to understand medicine labels. A quick disclaimer, I'm not a healthcare professional or a medication label expert. I'm a NeedyMeds team member showcasing information we have vetted and included on the BeMedWise Talk About Your Medicines Month page. I will direct you to the page for more information and always stress reaching out to your healthcare provider with any questions. So let's begin with what is NeedyMeds. We are a national nonprofit co-founded more than 2 decades ago by a retired family physician, Dr. Richard Sagel, and his friend, Libby Overly, who was a medical social worker. Here's our mission statement, but simply put, NeedyMeds connects people to programs that will help them afford their healthcare expenses. And we do that free and anonymously through a website, needymeds.org, and helpline, 1-800-503-6897. Here's a screenshot of our homepage. As you can see, it's full of information, so I encourage you to check it out further. For now, I'd just like to point out a few resources. Since I just mentioned our YouTube channel, you can find a link to it on the top right with all of our social media icons. If you're looking for healthcare savings, check out the Healthcare Savings tab. You can find educational information under the Education tab, where you will also see a link to BeMedWise. You'll also see a link to BeMedWise on the left side of the homepage as well. So what is BeMedWise? BeMedWise is a NeedyMeds project and website dedicated to the safe use of medicines. On BeMedWise.org, you can find accurate, up-to-date, and useful information on the safe and appropriate use of medicine, safe storage of medicines, and the safe disposal of unused medicines. Like NeedyMeds.org, it's full of information, so please check it out further, because today we're focusing on one specific initiative. Under that Get Informed tab, a drop-down menu will appear. That's where you'll find a link to our Talk About Your Medicines Month page. The BeMedWise annual Talk About Your Medicines Month spotlights important healthcare issues with the goal of better health outcomes through education. On the screen are just a handful of some popular Talk About Your Medicine Month themes from previous years. 2021 is the 36th annual Talk About Your Medicines Month, and the theme is Understanding Medicine Labels. With the Talk About Your Medicines initiative, we provide the most comprehensive and up-to-date information on understanding medicine labels and break the information into actionable categories. We've created a one-stop destination for everything you need to know about understanding medicine labels on BeMedWise Talk About Your Medicines Month. Understanding your medicine labels minimizes any risks medications may have while maximizing the benefits we count on. So let's dive right in with understanding prescription labels. The prescription label is usually wrapped around the medicine bottle. In some cases, especially with medicines like eye drops or creams, it may be on the outer box instead. On prescription labels, you'll find a ton of really important information, such as the pharmacy info. This includes the pharmacy name, address, and phone number. And this matters because you'll know where to go and what number to call with any concerns. Don't ever hesitate to contact your pharmacist with any and all questions. You'll also see the date the prescription was filled, as well as the RX or prescription ID number. Your prescription number is unique to your medicine and helps the pharmacist ensure you go home with the right prescription. The prescription label will also have patient information. Your name will be very prominently on the label, as well as your address. Always check that you've received your own prescription and that your information is accurate. You will also see the prescribing doctor or healthcare provider's name, as well as the date the prescription was written. A good idea to make sure the information here is accurate as well. You'll also find information about reordering the drug, which will also be on the label. Oftentimes, our prescriptions require a refill. If your provider told you a refill will be required, make sure that is indicated on the prescription label. This will ensure you understood the prescriber's instructions and that you'll be able to get more medicine in a timely and smooth manner. The reorder info will include the date you can place your refill order, as well as the number of times you can reorder the drugs. On the label, drug details will also be included, such as the name and strength of the drug or dosage, the pharmaceutical manufacturer, a physical description of the drug, and the number of pills that should be in the bottle. Basically, it will read something like 30 blue oval pills. Make sure the drug in the bottle matches both the description on the bottle and the number of pills. This is basically another chance to verify that the bottle contains the drug your doctor said you would be taking. So let me give you an example of why this is important. The same generic drug made by a different manufacturer can look different. Due to patent laws for brand name medications, generic drug manufacturers are not allowed to copy how a brand name pill looks in terms of its shape, its color, and its size. It can be tricky, though, as generic shape may be the same as the original if it's an authorized generic. Additionally, generic drug manufacturers can also take it a step further by producing generic pills that look different from another manufacturer's generic pills. Then, because pharmacies often change suppliers, the pharmacy's own stock of a particular generic drug may continually rotate. The result is that you might receive different looking pills from month to month, even though it's for the same medication. The ideal situation is that your medication stays standard and constant, but that's not always possible. Ideally, you should inspect drugs you've purchased before you leave the pharmacy. On all prescriptions, you will also see a disclaimer that states the transfer of this drug to any person other than the patient for whom it was prescribed is prohibited. The main reason for prohibiting the sharing of prescription drugs is to prevent health risks. For instance, if you take somebody's medication, you might not really understand what the drug's intended uses are. You might not know the potential side effects and may not be prepared or to recognize them. The drug might be wrong for someone with your particular medical condition or contraindicated with another drug you may be on. It could even be the wrong dose for your particular body size or weight. It's possible you'd be allergic to the drug or its components. Anyway, the list of why not to share prescriptions, other than the fact it is actually illegal, goes on and on. The point is, the statement there is to protect you. So let's move on to some other prescription basic labels. You will find instructions also on when and how to take the drug. Pay special attention to the instructions. Take it only as directed on the label. If the instruction says take daily, then only take that medication once each day. If it says 3 times a day, take the medication at 3 intervals, such as morning, afternoon, and evening, because that's easy to remember. You will also always find a warning label. Always read this warning label on your prescription. The warning labels are usually on the side or the back and are often separated from the main label. The package insert will describe all side effects and warnings. And the warnings are always specific to the particular medication you're taking. And something that we often disregard but should pay attention to is that expiration date. Expired medical products can be less effective or even risky due to a change in chemical composition. If your med has expired, don't take it. I also want to mention that more detailed printed information about the medication is usually provided by the pharmacy when prescription medicine is dispensed. This patient medicine information, or PMI, includes important information such as instructions for use and warnings about side effects and possible drug interactions. This accompanying paperwork should be read and kept, not put in the trash as soon as you leave the pharmacy, which I certainly have been guilty of doing in the past. So I just shared a ton of information about understanding prescription labels. Don't panic. You don't have to take notes or remember what we've covered. You can simply go to BeMedWise.org, click on that Get Informed tab, and then click on Talk About Your Medicines Month. That will bring you right to our Talk About Your Medicines Month. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. That will bring you right to our Talk About Your Medicines Month page, where you can scroll down to the Script Label Safety tab. You'll even find pictures like this and downloadables to make things simpler. Now, over-the-counter or OTC labels are also important, but they're a bit different. All over-the-counter medicines contain a drug facts label on their outer package that is presented in the same format and contains more than directions. It includes other important information that could matter to your health. For example, you'll find the medical ingredients or active ingredients. These are the ingredients or therapeutic substances that make the medicine work. For example, the active ingredient is what helps your fever go down, reduces your pain, or relieves your cough. It is especially important to pay attention to this section if you're taking more than one medicine, whether OTC or prescription, to make sure you are not taking too much of the same active ingredient. Too much of an active ingredient can be harmful. You'll also find uses and purpose. These sections tell you what symptoms or illnesses you can expect the medicine to treat. You should only use the products that treat the symptom you have. A medicine's uses section refers to the desirable effects that active ingredients are likely to have and helps tell you what symptoms or illnesses you can expect that medicine to treat. As always, ask a doctor or other healthcare professional or the pharmacist if you have any doubts about whether a medication is right for you or your family. Now, the purpose section tells you what type or category of medicine it is, such as an antihistamine, an antacid, a cough suppressant, or an acid reducer, for example. You will also find warnings. It may be called cautions. Now, there are times you should not take a particular OTC. The warning sections explain these times and also tells you when a healthcare provider needs to be consulted, as well as when to stop taking the product or medicine. Just as active ingredients have desirable effects, such as symptoms relief, they may also cause side effects or may be less safe under certain conditions. The manufacturer and FDA tell you what to expect in this warning section. The warning section also lets you know if you should be cautious during any particular activity, such as driving. It may also tell pregnant and nursing women not to use certain products unless they've talked to their healthcare provider, and remind parents and other caregivers to keep medicine out of the reach of children. In acid reducers, for example, the active ingredient may be famotidine, but the warning section notes that you should not use it if you are allergic to famotidine or any other acid reducer. For other ingredients, the drug warning section may list additional effects for those with certain conditions, such as glaucoma, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, or urinary problems. People with these conditions should check with their doctor before using certain medicines. Also, with some OTC medicines, such as antihistamines, the drug warning section tells us about possible side effects, such as drowsiness, that may be made worse by alcohol ingestion. Keep in mind, most people never experience any side effects, and all the side effects listed may be rare. As long as you're aware of all the potential uses, side effects, and risks, you can make an informed decision about when and whether to take an OTC medicine. Don't forget about that directions section, which contains instructions for the drug's safe use. It indicates the amount or dose of medicine to take, how often to take it, and how much you can take in a day. You should never take more than the drug facts label indicates, and you should never take a medicine more often or for longer than the label says, unless told to do so by your healthcare provider. Taking more of a medicine or taking it for longer than directed can be dangerous. Now, another section that we probably don't pay attention to, but we should, is that other information section. This section tells you other important information you should know about a medicine, such as where to store it. Take a look at the labels on the medicine you have in your house. Make sure you're keeping them in the right place. Most medicines should be kept away from heat and humidity. Some active ingredients may be damaged by hot or cold temperatures or excessive moisture. When an over-the-counter medicine contains significant amounts of certain minerals, such as calcium, potassium, or sodium, it'll be noted in this section. We also need to pay attention to the inactive or non-medical ingredients. This section will list ingredients not intended to relieve your symptoms. Maybe the colors, the preservatives, or the flavorings the medicine may have. This is particularly useful if you, a loved one, or a patient has a known allergy. Inactive ingredients may be used to improve the taste or ease the use of the OTC medicine. Some inactive ingredients act as fillers or capsules to bind the active ingredient into a pill form, and others serve as preservatives to keep the product fresh and safe. Inactive ingredients usually have no effect on consumers. However, if you have allergies to wheat, milk products, soy, corn, or any other food, vitamin, mineral, or food coloring, you should review the inactive ingredients to make sure they're safe for you. Over-the-counter medicines are recognized by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as safe and effective for the uses listed on their drug facts labels. As long as you're careful to avoid taking too large a dose of active ingredients and are mindful of the warnings, safe storage tips, and potential concerns with inactive ingredients, you should be at low risk, if any, for harm. Now, you'll also see a question or comment section. This is where you will find a phone number, usually toll-free, to call if you have questions about the medicine. As I've said, you can and should always talk to your pharmacist or healthcare provider if you have any questions. Now, just a couple of more things I want to mention. Always use the dosing device that comes with your medicine. For example, if you're taking a liquid medication, use the spoon or the dosing device that comes with it, not a silverware teaspoon, to ensure the right amount. And considering all the important information, I hope you agree, is on the package, it's a good idea to keep your carton so you have all this information on hand. And you can find all the information I covered on the Talk About Your Medicines Month page under the those OTC sections, where you will find downloadables, pictures, and helpful one-pagers like this. So let's move on. As we age, our bodies process medicines differently. That's why drug fact labels and package inserts are crucial in medication management for older adults. Older people also tend to have more chronic illnesses such as arthritis, high blood pressure, and osteoporosis, necessitating many different drugs, which can prove challenging. medication management for caregivers of aging parents or elderly loved ones can be challenging as well. In fact, it's easy to become overwhelmed. Knowing the facts about medicines and older adults will help. Certainly, many adult children who are caregivers are responsible for their parents' medication schedules. Likewise, even active older adults who care for themselves may need help taking medicine. Watch for side effects or adverse reactions that could be confused with signs of aging. And when it comes to children, something important to remember, they're not mini adults. In fact, their bodies respond very differently and break down medicines differently. So it's crucial to pay attention to the dosage. And something you'll see in the warning section of OTCs, regardless of the medication, always keep medicines out of the reach and sight of children. For more on this, check out the CDC's Up and Away campaign. So be sure to read and follow the age or weight instructions on the label, and always use the correct measuring devices, which we already talked about when administering liquid medications. As I said before, don't use a silver teaspoon. Now, oftentimes, the amount and direction are different for children of different ages or weights. For example, with children's pain and fever medications, the directions section includes a dosage chart that lets parents and caregivers know exactly how much they should be giving to their children. It also notes that in some cases, very young children and babies should not receive the medication at all. It's important to know that drug directions are not simply suggestions or recommendations, but critical guidelines that must be followed. Overdoses can cause severe reactions not usually listed on the drugs facts label, since the label is designed to talk about how to use and what to expect when you take the medicine as directed. One other thing I want to add as well, don't give human meds to pets or take pet medicines. So now when it comes to being responsible for older adults and children in your life, or being a caregiver in general, there's a lot to know. That's why we put together the drug label tips for older adults, caregivers, and kids section on the Talk About Your Medicines Month page. Like the other sections, here is where you will find information, resources, hyperlinks, downloadables, and tips like this: 10 important facts for medication management for older adults that you can rely on and share. So I'm going to shift gears again to ask you if you happen to know how many medicines contain acetaminophen. Yeah, go ahead and guess and send me a message into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. I'm curious to see the responses. And again, I'm looking to see if you have a guess about how many medications actually contain acetaminophen, because I was very surprised by the answer. And I'm getting a lot of varied answers. And based on most of them, it seems you will be pretty surprised. And here's why. I learned that there are actually more than 600 medicines that contain acetaminophen. More than 600. Now, when used as directed, it's safe and effective, but taking too much can lead to liver damage. This is just an example of one of the facts you should be aware of when it comes to pain meds, and why we added the Spotlight Pain Meds and Acetaminophen section of the Talk About Your Medicines Month page. This is your destination to find videos, websites, downloadables, and more facts for everything you need to know about being safe when it comes to pain meds. I'm hoping you agree understanding medicine labels is crucial when it comes to working toward better health outcomes. And it's simple to do with education. So please answer our call to action, which is visit the Talk About Your Medicines Month page, download the information, and share. So let's get to some of those questions coming in that have popped up through the presentation. And as I get to those, I will leave up our contact information as promised. So let's get to some of those questions coming in. And bear with me just a moment. So the first question coming in is, How can I find more? Oh, excuse me. Yes, how can I find out more about acetaminophen and what other drugs it is in? So, a great destination is a website called Know Your Dose, which is all about acetaminophen. I also recommend another site called Know Your OTCs, which is, you guessed it, all about being safe when it comes to over the counter medications. So check those out, and you probably guessed that they also contributed quite a bit to making sure that the information that we have on our Talk About Your Medicines Month page is accurate and up to date. So, another question coming in. Thanks for that great question. I'm glad I was able to share those resources. Bear with me one moment. So, sorry about that. So, another question coming in is, where can we find the document you showed that had an example of prescription medicine label? That had an example of a prescription medicine label and gave a definition of all the section. Well, I made that easy for you. You can find it in the handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. But like all the other downloadables, you can scroll to the bottom of the Talk About Your Medicine Month page and find it there. There's a whole section for downloadables. That particular document is by our partner organization, RX Outreach, and it's titled simply Prescription Medicine Labels. Thanks so much. So let's see, another question coming in. What are some common tips for giving meds to children? So another great question. I want to stress again that I am not a health professional or an expert when it comes to understanding medicine labels. I'm a NeedyMeds team member that helps to pull together the most accurate, up-to-date, and reliable information for the Talk About Your Medicines Month page and this presentation. So I'm going to share with you some things I learned along the way and that you can also find in that drug label tips section for older adults, caregivers, and kids on the Talk About Your Medicines Month page. So the ones that stick in my mind that I've learned along the way, and really the first one I've already mentioned it a couple of times, is to be sure that you use a measuring device that comes with liquid meds. Do not use a silverware teaspoon, for example. A few other things that stick out in my mind is never give your child a medicine prescribed to someone else. Even if two people have the same illness, even if your child has the same exact sickness as your neighbor's kid, they still may require different drugs with different dosages and different directions. And we know that dosages may be very different for different weights. So that's another thing that sticks out in my mind. A couple other things to keep in mind when it comes to keeping children safe around medicine is don't refer to medicine as candy. Saying medicine is candy may make it easier to get your child to take that medicine, but it may also encourage them to try it on their own. And also, I'll just mention, use caution when giving aspirin to children or teenagers. This is something I learned and was surprised by, that yes, aspirin is approved for use for children 3 years of age or older, but kids recovering from chickenpox or an illness with flu-like symptoms should never take aspirin. It may cause something called Ray's syndrome, potentially leading to liver failure. So again, you can find all of this information in that drug label tips for older adults, caregivers, and kids section on the Talk About Your Medicines Month page. So a big thank you to our attendees for joining us today. I do my best to keep the question segment brief, but if you did ask a question that I didn't get a chance to answer, you can go ahead and shoot me an email, wait for me to follow up, or you can always reach out to our NeedyMeds call center counselors at 1-800-503-6897. A big thank you for joining us today. And we do hope you visit our BeMedWise Talk About Your Medicines Month page, download the information, and share it. And of course, a big thank you to all of our supporters that worked to make sure we had the most accurate, up-to-date, and important information to make sure NeedyMeds users and friends are understanding their medicine labels. Thanks so much and have a great rest of the day.